Welcome to Tales from the Cigar Lounge. I'm Bob Sample, your host. Join me as we explore leadership, hospitality, and savor stories from remarkable leaders in a variety of industries. Grab a cigar, pour yourself a drink, and let's indulge. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Tales from the Cigar Lounge. And we wanted the first episode to deal with leadership. And leadership obviously is important not only in my business, but in just about every other business. So when you think of the great leaders, you think of coaches and managers and presidents of companies. And I'm very fortunate to have a very good friend named Steve Hatchell, who I've known since 1990. And Steve is what I call the leader of leaders. He currently is the president and CEO of the National Football Foundation, College Football Hall of Fame. But when I first met him back in Miami in 1990, he was executive director of the Orange Bowl. And then he went on to be the commissioner of the Southwest Conference. Then he was the first commissioner of the Big 12. He ran the Pro Rodeo for a while, actually put them on the map as far as national recognition. And then for the last 19 years, he's run the organization that oversees what's good about the game of football. Steve, welcome, and thank you for doing this. And I think that we need to probably start with, tell us what you do now with the National Football Foundation. I know how important it is as far as football is concerned and amateur athletics, but tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we can kind of go into how leadership affects you, and I can certainly tell a million stories about how it affects me.
Well, the problem with the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame title is that there is no elevator speech. There's no way to crystallize what we do into something in a short span of time. But we boil it down into, I think the best way to talk about it is that we're there to take care of the history of the game. So college football has been around since 1869. The National Football Foundation is 76 years old, and it's just been full of leaders, President of the United States, great military leaders, great business leaders who have said football matters, football makes a difference. So you take care of the history of the game. The other part of it is you have to promote what's going on now. What's the good information? There's a lot of negative stuff that comes down the road, some verifiable, some not. So who's promoting that? Who's promoting the good in the game? And then the third thing that's really important is to promote and protect what's going to happen into the future so that there's football well into the future, that all of the people can participate in it at a really accelerated pace that gives back to the game. So that's what the Football Foundation does. Now, people are more interested, I think, in the way, Bob, that we put people into the College Football Hall of Fame. So there's been 5.6 million guys that have played college football since 1869. And we've only got about 1,200 people that are in the College Football Hall of Fame. You have to be a first-team All-American as a player. You have to be, as a head coach, you have to coach for 10 years and have at least a 60% winning percentage. So it's a true Hall of Fame. You got to be very special to get into it. So we put people in the College Football Hall of Fame every year. And then the other part that we have is that we recognize academics. So we have a chapter system that's been around since the early 50s. We work with 5,000 high schools and 500,000 high school football players every year. And when people say, well, we've got problems with football, or there's academics aren't doing so well, we say, wait just a second, hold up. The graduation rates for colleges right now is greater than the graduation rate for the school in general. Graduation rates in football are very strong. There are schools that are adding football. So we put out all information, and we also give away somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million worth of scholarships every year through the chapter system and through what we do at the National Football Foundation. And we give an award called the William B. Campbell Trophy, and it goes to the top college academic football player in the country. And these go to people that are in the NFL. This isn't just somebody sat on the bench and has a 4-point. These go to really powerful people. So it's a long-winded way of saying that we try to be very important for the game and recognize the good in the game.
I think the most important statistic you can give is the percentage of actual college football players that play pro football.
And on our board of directors, we have the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, a friend long before he was the commissioner. We have 3 owners, Jerry Jones, who played college football, Robert Kraft, who played college football, owns the Patriots, and Michael Bidwell, who owns the Cardinals. And they got involved with us, this is a good 12 years ago, where they said, look, there's some real data out here. Who goes and plays in the NFL? Because the perception is that everybody that plays major college football is going to make it or try to be into the NFL. And the facts are this. There's 81,000 college football players in any given year. But through all of the verifications that we have, working with the NFL very carefully and NCAA, schools, et cetera, only 0.6% will make it in the NFL, either get drafted or sign as a free agent. That means that in any given year, 99.4%, 99.3% are going on to do other things in life. So let's talk about what the experiences really are. It's admirable you want to play in the NFL. It's a great experience. Obviously, you can make an awful lot of money. But what if you don't have that? Is it enough to say I played college football and now I've got a degree, which we cherish, and we've gone on to do other things? So this is important for us to give that kind of information.
Well, obviously it is important because besides those leaders of athletics, pro and college, you have people on your board of trustees that are pretty powerful business people. Tim Cook from Apple, Kathleen Murphy from Fidelity, people like Kevin Plank, Under Armour. So these are people that are leaders and have exhibited leadership throughout their lives and are now the kind of the alpha performers. So here you are running this organization. Tell us what happens when you have a board of trustees meeting and you got Roger Goodell sitting there and Tim Cook and all these guys who are used to calling shots, and women. How do you, I know how I act when I'm in a meeting, whether it's with my partners or with my employees. What goes through your mind when you sit out there and you see Tim Cook and Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones and Bidwell and Kraft, and how do you approach that as a leader?
Well, in our particular case, you act like you're at a fraternity house, okay. And you're going to have fun with a lot of people, but they also know that how serious we are about what we're trying to do with football. And if you talk about those 3 things, what are we doing about the history of the game? So we built a new Hall of Fame 10 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. We've had one, this is our 4th site. We've had one for a long span of time, but we think this is really good that we have in Atlanta. So that helps protect the game. Helps protect videos. It helps protect the legacy of the game. And those guys like being part of that. They like being part of who's going in the Hall of Fame. And the other part of it is what are we going to do when you promote for the future? So you go through all of these names, and when people look at the list of people that are on our board, 50 powerhouse people, they say if these people care about football, football is all right. And so when we come out and try to be sharp-elbowed about the good messaging in the game, it comes with a message that these people really care. And it's that old saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And so when you look at our board, we're going to go far because of these people, and they are magnificent leaders. You mentioned those people with Archie Manning as our chairman, and what he is as a family man, what he is to football. There's nobody that represents the game better than Archie. But then you build in people like Clay Bennett, who owned the Oklahoma City Thunder, spectacular businessman, a leader in the NBA. Roger Goodell, leader of the NFL. Look what Jerry Jones' impact he's had on the NFL, just speaking of leaders. And then you build in Admiral Bill McRaven, SEAL Team 6, went on to be the chancellor at the University of Texas. You put all of those people in there together, and it's like a mosaic that you can't break. It's strengths coming in a lot of different directions. So we think that we've got the right people pulling on the rope at the same time with the same intensity.
Well, I've had the great pleasure of attending probably the last 15 induction dinners, which for 60 years was at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, was the biggest function they had every year of anywhere from 15 to 1,800 people, and since COVID has moved to Las Vegas. And I've been there to watch all of these people gather. And I've come to the conclusion that leadership is a full-time job. You're a leader, you're always a leader. Everything you do and say just says you're a leader. The way you walk in, the way you act, the way you interact with everybody. And I try to preach that with my managers and the people that I come in contact with. And when I watch the good leaders, the great leaders, they also never get discouraged by that one person or that one incident that might be astray from their mission. They just hold steady and they say, listen, I know I'm right and this is how we're going to do it. And I preach that every day, and I see that with other good leaders. So you've been doing this a long time. You've been involved with amateur athletics ever since you left college and University of Colorado. And you've watched the great leaders. You've watched guys you admired. And, you know, you kind of learn something sometimes from bad leaders, too. You say what you don't want to do. And so if you had to say who was really, really good at it that you kind of learned the most from, who would you say that was? Because I know you've told me a lot of stories, and I know it might be hard to narrow it down.
It's really hard to narrow down for me because I've been, if there's anybody in the world that's been blessed with being associated with great people, and I know people throw it away, but I had very powerful mom and dad. You know, we had 5 kids in our family, and building in a little humor into all of this, my mom would always say, if you're playing football, they have captains, don't they? How do you get to be a captain? And then I worked on the school newspaper, and she said, they have editors, don't you? How do you get to be an editor? I mean, what are you doing here? You're just wasting your time. So it started there. But then my whole journey through the University of Colorado in football, the coach was Eddie Crowder, who I just really adored, but his assistant coaches, where I learned so much, were Jim Mora, who goes on to be a great coach in the NFL, Jerry Claiborne, Hall of Fame coach, Don James, national champion, Hall of Fame coach, and the list goes on. And they would just tell you, we expect this of you. We don't care that you're 19 years old. This is what we expect, and we'd like it done. And then that was great, but the one person that I owe so much to was Chuck Ninus. Chuck had been at the NCAA, and then went to the Big 8 conference as commissioner. I had people that tell me, you can't go to the Big 8. Chuck Ninus is too tough to work for, and you won't get along. Well, the athletic director at the University of Texas, DeLoss Dodds, was already there before he went on to be the athletic director at Texas. Bill Hancock, who runs the college football playoff, was on that staff. Prentice Gaught, the first African-American to play football at Oklahoma, was on that staff, who had gone on to become a professor and get his doctorate. And to be associated with those people, and Chuck would always tell us, and he would do this in a tough way, but it was a smart way. He would say, look, this job has got 10 parts to it. I can get anybody to do 1 through 5. I know you can do 1 through 5. I expect you to do 6 through 10. And wherever I have gone, people know, because of my association with Chuck, that's how I look at everything. So where all of these other jobs that you've talked about, I like being a change agent. I am not a guy that just sits back and says, okay, we're going to row the boat the same way. Let's make some changes. Let's make some difference. So Chuck was profound, and if you go back and look at what he did, it was through the College Football Association that he created, that Oklahoma and Georgia then sued, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court in 1984, and it brought down the television rights from the NCAA that went back to the schools and to the conferences. And right away, everybody said to Chuck, oh, you've ruined college football. Now, how can anybody watch television? Money's all going to go away and all that. Well, look at where we are today. There's so much football on television, which everybody likes, has great ratings. There's more money in the game than ever before. So having that vision and how Chuck imparted that to all of us, I think was really important. So I would say Chuck Ninus is probably, without a doubt, the most profound.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at my career, obviously I started working for my dad at first, and he, of course, the biggest influence on me, taught me how to work hard. And he had only had a sixth grade education, so his leadership qualities were kind of crude. You know, do it my way because I say so, you know. And then fortunate enough to work with some great restaurateurs who gave me a little more finesse than that, and showed me that this is how you lead people. And don't ever get discouraged by the one or two participants that don't do it exactly like you do it. That if you're convinced that this is what the customer wants, then go with it. And if you're wrong, you take it like a man and move on. And when you look at the great leaders, and I've been so fortunate to meet a lot of coaches and managers, and tell two quick stories. One is Joe Torre, the manager of the Yankees, came in the restaurant one night, and we got to talking, and I said, Joe, I manage a team every night, and you manage a team, and can you tell me one thing that kind of stands out? And he said, well, Bob, you need a secret weapon. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I had number 2, Derek Jeter. I said, well, what do you mean he's a secret weapon? When I had somebody on my team that I wasn't getting through to, I tell Jeter, I said, listen, take this kid and keep him for a few days and tell me what you think of him. And I tell that kid, see number 2 over there? Do everything he does, and we'll see if you got what it takes. And after a few days, Derek would come back to me and say whether this kid had hope or no hope, and the kid, or else the kid would say to me, "Hey, listen, this isn't for me," or, you know, I don't know if I can do it his way, or he can say, "Wow, that was fantastic. I want to spend more time with Derek." And he said, "You got to have, every team has to have that. I have to have it in my management teams at the restaurant. You have to have it in your management teams at the foundation, and the teams below you do." And you know, it's all that. And then there's the funny story of Casey Stengel, the longtime baseball manager. And they asked Casey, what's the secret of managing a baseball team? He says, just make sure the 5 guys that hate you never talk to the 4 guys that like you. So that's a little bit of truth to that too when you're leaders. But you know, I never stop learning about leadership. It seems that even at my age, things happen at the restaurant and I go, wow, you know, I don't know if I handled that right, or next time I'm not going to handle it that way, because we're in a different time. Right. You know, when I started in the business 60 years ago or 55 years ago, you know, you got reprimanded, you got smacked in the back of the head, you got, you know, sent home with no pay, and now you know, it's a whole different world, and a lot more people think they're entitled, and, you know, so leadership has developed, but the good leaders are still the good leaders. Mm-hmm. They're still, when I walk into a restaurant, I can tell, if I can just walk through there, I can tell you if who the manager is, just by the way they act. And when you walk in a restaurant, when I walk in a restaurant and I can't tell who the manager is, I think that's bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've seen teams and organizations and colleges that you just don't know who's in charge. Right. You know, they got so much going on in this day and age, you just don't know who's in charge. And right. Leadership never goes out of style. I don't care how much money is involved. Right. I don't care if it's a junior high school with no budget or a professional team that's worth $5 billion like the Cowboys. Leadership is leadership. Leadership's leadership. And you know, one thing we've done at Bob's, the original Bob's, is the National Football Foundation came up with an award called the Hatchell Cup, which is awarded to the high school in America that has the highest, their football team has the highest academic standards. And when I first heard about it, I was very intrigued and really proud that it was named after you. And I decided that the original Bob's on Lemon Avenue should be the sponsor of that. And so last year was our first year. We awarded a school in Iowa that got the award, a $10,000 check, brought them to Dallas, had dinner with them, had some great people show up, including Bob Stoops, who has great ties to Iowa. It was a wonderful evening. I was very proud to be part of it. We, of course, have this year's recipient, which will be Cathedral High School in Indianapolis. They're going to be coming in for their big dinner presentation and get their $10,000 check. And also this year I decided to add a Texas winner, which we are going to announce at the July Texas High School Football Coaches Convention in San Antonio. So listen, I never played high school football. I wasn't tough enough, but because of you and what you've done and watched you do for amateur athletics, I felt that I had to be the sponsor. We had to be the sponsor of this. So thanks for letting us do it.
Well, it's really significant, and I like just the fact that you're involved because you're a dear friend. And when we created this, the whole idea was to go right into the negative aspect that if you play football, that's all you can do. And so by creating this, irrespective of the name, we have used the Texas High School Coaches as an organization. And if there's a bright light on the hill for all of high school coaches in the entire country, it's the Texas High School Coaches. So what you do with them, 26,000 coaches, every college football coach comes to their convention to be around them. They use the same rules as colleges. They are spectacular on how they look down the road. And Texas high school football, as we like to say, is 13 months out of the year. This isn't just a little bit, it's 13 months out of the year. So for you to be involved on the national basis, Texas high school coaches come in with the Hatchell Cup, and to see all of these states, regardless of how many divisions that they have, to come up with one high school in each division to be recognized all around the country, one, whether they get a Bob's grant or not, they get to say, this is the top high school in my state. And so what you do is profound. It's of a great structure that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's something brand new that you've created. And then to turn around to do it with the Texas guys is, I think, is really significant just because what it means to high school football in the country. And whenever there's an issue that comes up, everyone wants to know what Texas is doing. So you help on a national basis and you help on a regional basis, meaning in the state of Texas. So thank you for your support because it's really meaningful, Bob.
My pleasure. Out of respect to you, I wore my football tie today. I just want you to know that if you hadn't noticed. And
Thank you.
Steve, to sum everything up, things have changed. There's no doubt things have changed. But what's the one thing that no matter what remains constant and whoever takes over from you is going to have to worry about? I think I know what that is, but tell me what you think that is.
Well, when you do all of these things, and if you're a change agent, there has to be a couple of tenets that you believe in that people would always say, tell us about Hatchell, talk about the Football Foundation. So the ones that are really significant to me is that we will take on challenges. We're not afraid to stand back. And even to the point we say with great pride, even the New York Times sent a guy down to study what we were doing with our messaging with Football Matters and the future for football, because they saw that we were making a difference. And that's a great sense of pride there. But I think when it comes down to how you look at it personally, there's two things. One, I like the ability to say, I will outwork you. And if you look at our staff, which you know very well, we will outwork you. And you might be smarter, you might have more benefits. We will outwork you. And the other part of it is that you always want people to reflect on you and say, that's done with a lot of class. So if you got to stay till midnight to put something out that you could hurriedly get done by 4 p.m, you get it done by midnight, people would say, this is done with a lot of class, because how it's presented could be the very same message, but it would come wrapped in a way where people would say, these people really care about what they're doing and where they're going. So those are kind of the three things. Be a change agent, look to make a difference. You will outwork people, that's what we do, and you're going to do it with a sense of class. I think those are really important.
Well, I was asked that same question, and I had to think about it. And what I said to them was, now, the original Bob's is 30 years old. And I'm really happy that I've made the decision that we're not only going to continue to be a great restaurant, but we're going to be part of the community and we're going to make a difference in the community. Because we have to, I felt that as a restaurateur that got so much from our community, that I have to give back and make that community even better. And first of all, it makes me proud. I'm so fortunate to have met you and been involved in some of these initiatives, and it gives back to our community, which we have to say thank you. Been in business 30 years under my leadership, and I'm proud of that leadership, and I want whoever takes over from me to understand that you gotta keep leading. You can't stop. You gotta keep it going, because if we stop, we got problems. But okay, so we talked a lot about leadership. We talked a lot about what we need to be. But we're sitting here in a restaurant, a great new restaurant here in McKinney, Bob's. We're in the Cigar Lounge. Steve isn't necessarily a cigar smoker. I am. But Steve enjoys a cocktail. And so, and he doesn't just stick to one cocktail. So I'm going to ask you, you've come in the restaurant, you've ordered bourbon, you've ordered vodka martinis. How do you decide what you're going to drink, and why do you drink those things?
Well, first of all, it's a long story of how I even got into bourbon, and I've always liked that. And now I have one of my boys is a connoisseur of bourbon.
He is
of a supreme nature.
Yes.
Even to the point where some of the MGM properties call Matt and will say, "What do you think about this? Have you got any of this?" So he's really good at it. I tend to be more of just a plain old Jack Daniel's guy because the longtime equipment manager on the football team at the University of Colorado, if he liked you, he made you drink it right out of the bottle. And
that's what real men do, by the way.
I know, right? And so I actually, to be honest with you, I couldn't stand it, but then you get to where you can deal with it. So I think it just has to do with the day when it goes in. And if you go into Bob's, and I'm not at all just being nice about this at all, the best martinis in anywhere that I go is at Bob's. That's all there is to it. I mean, there's nobody even in second place. And so depending on how that day goes, it's always a generous pour, as they would say. Mm-hmm. So you only need one to make the day take off the edges a little bit. But there's nothing that's really predetermined in advance of that. It just depends on where you go. Jack Daniel's is everywhere, but Bob's Martinis are only at Bob's.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm proud to be your friend and proud of everything you've accomplished, and glad to be along for the ride.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Proud of you.
Thank you.